So if many people didn't know, the bike industry is really struggling right now, with many companies just trying to stay in business. In fact, I had a video not too long ago that talked about Gorilla Gravity, which recently went out of business. Well, now it looks like these problems are hitting the big boys, with Wiggle and chain reaction cycles now in dire straits. So to give a little background, both Wiggle and chain reaction are owned by Cigna Sports United, also known as SSU, which is a subsidiary of Cigna Holdings. And Wiggle CRC has been hurting with massive losses over the last couple years, and SSU was counting on Cigna's funding promise of over £150 million throughout September 2025 to give the company a chance to get over some of its financial issues. So you may be wondering, how big were these losses? In 2021, Wiggle CRC had losses of over £14.5 million, and it got even worse for 2022, with Wiggle CRC announcing in September that for the year 2022, they had a loss of over £97 million, which to me is just shocking. Now, what's the explanation that's caused these losses? The directors of Wiggle CRC claim that challenging economic conditions is the main contributor, including the impacts of Brexit and the post-pandemic drop in demand for cycling products. And unfortunately for SSU, the parent company of Wiggle CRC, their parent company, Sigma Holding, they actually announced earlier this month that they were going to withdraw their £150 million commitment, which now leaves SSU in a very challenging, precarious situation. In fact, SSU is in such a bad financial situation that they're going to be delisting the company's shares from the New York Stock Exchange due to what they call, quote, severe liquidity and profitability challenges. So this withdrawal of funding from Sigma Holding has come to a complete surprise to SSU, and they were not happy with it at all. And they even put in a statement, quote, after many years of mutually trusted collaboration and reliable financing between the company and Cigna Holding, SSU has relied on the binding and unconditional nature of the equity commitment letter to continue to draw funds to meet its near-term obligations and for its concerned assessment of the company. And as subsidiaries, the company considers the termination of the equity commitment letter by Cigna Holding unjustified. And while the company regrets the termination of the equity commitment letter, it will take the appropriate legal steps in the interest of all shareholders, creditors, and employees. So what can SSU do to keep from going out of business? So right now, SSU is going into what they call self-administration, which basically means that the existing directors are going to attempt to restructure the business rather than having actual administrators coming in to do the restructuring. This process has oversight from a court, and it would give SSU protection from creditors who would be unable to take them to court for their money. So the next question is, what happens if this self-administration doesn't work? Well, then SSU would have to call in the real administrators and give control of the company over to them. And the main question is, how does this impact Wiggle, Chain Reaction, and all their brands? So under the umbrella of Wiggle and Chain Reaction are a couple brands you've probably heard of, including Nukeproof, Ragley, and Vetus. And with the future of Wiggle CRC in limbo, this also means that all of these brands, including their staff, sponsored athletes, and race teams, are at risk. If Wiggle CRC does in fact go out of business, there is a chance that another company will pick them up, especially since all three brands that I've already mentioned have pretty diehard communities. So if Wiggle Chain Reaction does go out of business, will another company buy them out? That I'm not really too sure, to be honest. I know that historically both Wiggle and Chain Reaction are some of the biggest online retailers in the world. But the truth of the matter is, over the last 2 years, they have lost a combined £110 million. And with the bike industry still in shambles, with many predicting it won't recover until at least 2025, what are the chances of another company buying them out? And something that I think is really important to mention as well is the trickle-down effect that this would have on part and bike distributors that do business with both Wiggle and Chain Reaction. Since Wiggle and Chain Reaction are some of the biggest online retailers, if they were to go out of business, it begs the question if this will cause cash flow problems across the industry. And not only that, from my understanding, there's stock that Wiggle Chain Reaction has that's not even been paid for. Now keep in mind, this is a rumor and it's not been confirmed, so take this with a little grain of salt. And just to throw another wrench into this, DJ Brandt, who just signed a deal with Nukeproof this year and just rode the Rampage, he just announced on Instagram that he's leaving Nukeproof early, even though he has a 2-year deal. So basically, this isn't looking too good. So I'm going to keep an eye out in the situation moving forward, since like many people out there, I actually have 2 bikes I purchased from Chain Reaction, my Nukeproof Mega and my Ragley Mbop. So I'm actually interested in how this plays out, and if these 2 companies go out of business, where will that leave part availability, and will potential future warranty issues be honored? So to me, this is looking pretty bad. But let me know how you think about it, and how you think this whole situation is going to play out. But thank you so much for watching, and have a great one.